I'm watching what's happening in the news with Donald Trump canceling student visas, kicking out protesters from universities, and harassing universities like Harvard and telling them they can't have foreign students. This has an effect for Americans, and I'm going to tell you how to protect yourself. Now, as I always tell you, this is not coming from a left-wing or a right-wing perspective. I am a former U.S. citizen. I live overseas. I watch the news unfolding in the United States as a dispassionate observer and someone who sees the headlines the way the rest of the world sees the headlines. And what I believe is the United States is an empire in decline. The proof is in the pudding in how people are responding to what's happening right now with these immigration crackdowns. Now, a lot of people in the so-called MAGA contingent will say, well, we're tired of welfare queens and people coming and causing problems and freeloaders coming to our country. I would argue if you're going to Harvard University, particularly as a foreign student where you're likely paying full boat tuition, you're probably not a freeloader. And I've said for years, I've been sitting in this chair for 13 years telling you that the United States has really shot itself in the foot by not letting graduates from its top universities stay in the country and get jobs. They send them back home. And then Americans somehow complain that, China is getting all this talent. They're getting smarter. They're getting better. They're competing with us more. Well, maybe more of them would have stayed had you let those who graduated from top universities stay and get jobs. But U.S. immigration policy has always been weird. It's always been extremely difficult to get in. It's always taken a tremendous amount of time to get in. And my message to you that you should keep in mind if you're an American and how you're perceived globally is what we're seeing is from some of the largest immigration countries in the world, like China and India. Not only do fewer people want to emigrate, especially from China, more people just want to stay in China. China first is their motto. Our country's getting better. Why do we need to go somewhere else? But those that are immigrating are increasingly going to Singapore and Dubai and other places in the Gulf because they can pay a heck of a lot lower taxes. They have a safer environment. No one's going to shoot them on the street or shoot their kids at school. It's cleaner. And hey, they figure the U.S., I can work towards citizenship, but it seems like that's a pipe dream these days. I might as well just go to Dubai. And so those people are going to build someone else's country. And so we can talk, sure, illegal immigration? Yeah, it's illegal. I think, again, as a dispassionate observer, someone who's built a big business overseas, I think it's a sign of just how far the empire has fallen, that the average person is so upset their job could be taken away by a Salvadorian. But hey, listen, it's illegal immigration. I'm against what's illegal. The people shouldn't come over the southern border. I might understand why some of them do it. I might even blame the United States for creating violence in their country that made them want to leave. But illegal is illegal, and I'll agree with you there. But people coming to study at Harvard, I largely voted as a business owner. I largely voted Republican when I lived in the United States. I left when I realized it doesn't matter who you vote for. It's not going to make a bloody difference. And yet I see so many people on that Republican side. They were always against Harvard and the Ivy League. And I kind of see it a little bit now as people who are hardworking, salt-of-the-earth people who perhaps just don't like the so-called elites. I don't know what Harvard has ever done to me. If Harvard wants to teach different stuff, go there or don't. And I think that there's been, 30 or 40 years of this kind of pushback on the elites, and I understand a good part of it, but maybe not all of it anymore. And it's coming full circle now. Let's not let foreign students come and pay Harvard a lot of tuition. Let's punish Harvard by not letting them bring those foreign students. And let's really just put the message out. Here's the important part. Forget the U.S. policy, none of my business. But here's the important part. Let's put the message out to the world that the U.S. is closed. And I think a lot of people in the United States are hurting these days, and their answer is good. Yeah, let us be closed. And they've bought into this idea that we can just be isolated. And we've seen with the trade war and the tariffs that Trump backed down on that that's just not going to work. Other countries have resources and talent and other things that you might need, and sure, become more independent. But it's not really a good idea to be isolated. And, if you look 25 years ago, if somebody said, hey, let's not bring in any more foreign students, would the answer be, good riddance, we don't want those jerks anyway? No. Why? And I've said this for years. The why is because people are having trouble paying their rent and their mortgage, and their jobs aren't paying as much as they used to, and they're scared, and then they become angry. And so a lot of people blame the rich, even though the rich pay a lot of the taxes in the U.S. We have plenty of rich clients paying a boatload in taxes. That's why they come to us for help, because they're paying a boatload in taxes. They don't have shares of Amazon or Tesla to borrow against. The average rich guy does not. But on the right, now we're just blaming all the immigration. And sure, I can see that. I'm all for bringing in wealthy and smart people. Do you need more people to, well, you do need more people for agriculture and things like that, the jobs Americans won't do. I don't see even Republicans cracking down on ending all welfare benefits that would force certain people to go out and pick strawberries. If you're going to turn away wealthy and smart people, that's going to have a ripple effect. And you're entitled to whatever boundary and whatever opinion you want. Good riddance to those people from Asia. We don't need them. Okay. Well, you know who cares about the people in Asia? The people in Asia. And the other 96% of the world is going to go out and they're going to move to Singapore. They're going to move to Dubai. They're going to do what people on the right say. Why don't you go back and make your country better? Let me tell you, as someone who's been going to China for close to 20 years now, and who talks to people from China. We have Cyrus Jansen speaking at Nomad Capitalist Live. I pay attention to what's happening. And what I see is a lot more people from China want to stay in China. Their country has become much more advanced in many ways than the United States. Their airports are more advanced, their train system, so many things are more advanced. And I think Americans get a number of things about China wrong. I think, again, the right wing exaggerates some of the things. I mean, we talked to Cyrus Jansen about the social credit score. It's not quite as extreme as you think. Is it perfect? No. But, you know, for me, coming from the U.S., I was always ashamed at how Americans didn't travel and made these broad generalizations about other countries. And, oh yeah, China's bad. And then when China improves itself and the Chinese want to stay there the same way you told them they should, then they build businesses to compete with you. Their car companies are eclipsing Western car companies. They're building all kinds of other things, from AI to tech to chips, all that kind of stuff. And the U.S. is not going to be able just to shut them down anymore because the EU wants to trade with China. Southeast Asia favors China. There's a lot of people who want to do business with China. And so the U.S. is shooting itself in the foot. And this is just the latest example of saying, we don't even want your students to come here. And I think that the average person overseas reading the headlines is going to look at that and they're just going to say, yeah, the U.S. seems closed. We see some people who are being deported or kicked out in shackle or whatever it is. And so the average person overseas who's not going to go deep into like, well, you don't understand what's actually happening. They don't care what's happening in your country. They just want to know, can I come there? Can I study there? Can my children study there? Can I live there? Can I get a job there? They don't care about every intricacy of your life the same way you don't care about every intricacy of theirs. They're just looking at the headlines. The headlines are people are being locked up because they had the wrong visa. Some German guy didn't agree with Trump and they locked him up for 2 weeks. Whether you agree with that or not, that's what people see. The same way you see a headline about social credit scores in China. Maybe you watched a YouTube video and now you know everything there is to know about social credit scores. Is that really true? Have you been to China? Have you seen what's happening? I'm not saying China is the perfect place. Well, yeah, move to China. That's the emotion that shows a empire in decline. If you're number one, you don't have to tell people good riddance, right? We film videos with Miss Universe. You think some guy doesn't want to date her? Good riddance. She's like, okay, great. I got plenty of options. The emotion comes from not having so many options. Americans feel trapped. And so if you're a successful American, I believe, and I've said this for some time now, you need to have some other identity because the other 96% of the world is increasingly saying these people aren't reliable for trade. They're not even reliable to send our bloody kids to their schools. Like, the average person reads these headlines, and you can see the mainstream media, and they're painting it the wrong way, and it's fake news. The other 96% don't share that view. And this idea of being isolated and saying, who cares? Americans have always said this, who cares what the rest of the world thinks about us? Great. Well, then don't be upset when they go and build world-leading companies in their country that are going to increasingly take market share, maybe not from Americans, but from the rest of the world. They're going to favor these other places. I live in Southeast Asia. Chinese companies are eating everyone else's lunch because they're coming with a lower price point, better experience. Whether you like that or not, the Malaysians where I live prefer the Chinese ice cream to the American ice cream. It's cheaper. It tastes better. The Chinese brands understand what they want more, right? So the 4% can have their view of what works for them. But if you're an American business person, you think there's nobody in your supply chain that's selling outside of the United States? Of course they are. And so what I've done is move my business overseas. We work with Americans. They're one of the top 3 or 4 nationalities we work with. We work with British. We work with Canadians. Both of those are very popular right now. Australians, Germans. We also have South Africans. We also have Vietnamese. We also have Colombians. We also have Mexicans. And I don't know to what extent Americans in the future are going to have either as easy of a time, as affordable of a time, or even a time at all to do business worldwide. I think the American brand is going to increasingly stand for isolationism. And so I'm happy to be a citizen, for example, of St. Lucia, among other countries. Who is St. Lucia pissing off? Nobody. And I've said for years, Americans have this ego around their country where it's like, well, we have Google, we have Facebook. Do you own Google? I mean, do you own a few shares? Are you the founder and owner of Google? No. Why do we take ego from, I live in a country where Google was created? Who cares? What have you created? And if you've created, yes, most of us are not going to create the next Google. I've created something a tiny fraction as big as Google. And yet my business runs more efficiently in terms of how I bank, in terms of where my business can invest, in terms of who our customers are, in terms of our taxation, because I no longer live in the United States and because I am no longer American. The business works better. That worked for me years ago, and I believe that's going to be the reality for far more American business owners, because you're not going to be able to hire the best talent if you stay in the country. The U.S. will increasingly be difficult. And listen, I get it, fine. We don't want illegal immigrants. We don't want rapscallions. We don't want ne'er-do-wells. Really? Somebody from China coming to study at an Ivy League university is a rapscallion? That's the person, that's where you're going to draw the line? If I'm a business, I'm not going to get the best people. I would rather have a business in Dubai, for example, where I can literally hire anyone and give them a visa. Here's your visa. Anybody in the world. I can hire the best talent from anywhere. I got a UAE golden visa recently. I'd had a UAE residence permit before. I got the golden visa. I was approved in less than 2 hours. You know, there's people who are living in India who've been applying for U.S. residence, and they're going to the embassy now for forms they filed in the year 2000. I mean, again, you can say, hey, listen, we don't need more. Okay, great. The Indians want to go where they're treated best also, and so they're going to do that. You think none of them are talented? And I very simply think that Americans who have any kind of success, not the ones who are struggling to not pay their rent and who are angry and who are getting emotional and saying, hey, get rid of those people. Maybe they insert some racist comment. But if you're someone who is actually making it and you've built something great and you're paying a lot of taxes, you're paying a lot of taxes now to basically be perceived badly around the world. And as even the European Union wants to shift more to do business with China and South America, Brazilian stocks are doing very well because China's going to buy from them and not as much from the U.S. I think that having a second passport is going to be very important. I really, really do. And if you've got a business that makes millions of dollars a year, spending $200,000 on a citizenship by investment where you don't need to change your lifestyle, you don't need to go anywhere, you don't need to do anything different, that wouldn't be the worst investment right now to be able to go somewhere else for lower taxes, be able to go somewhere else if there's a war, be able to go somewhere else if there's civil unrest, be able to go somewhere else if you just want a better lifestyle. Whatever the issues that bother you are, having access to live in 1, 6, 30 additional countries isn't a bad thing. But I think it also is going to be part of an identity that going forward, I don't think any country is going to replace the United States as the one superpower. You're going to see much more of a fractured world, multipolarity, where different blocks are all going to work with each other. And the United States is going to be a member of fewer blocks, and it's going to be less significant overall. And I mean, I put my money where my mouth is, millions of dollars invested all around the world outside of the United States, much of it in emerging and frontier markets. I've done very well. And I will tell you that I think that's where a lot of the growth is. If you want your business to grow, and if you want to be accepted by banks, by investments, and by customers, I think being an American and having only that identity is going to be a bad thing because people around the world are only reading the headlines. And they're going to increasingly say, well, that U.S. doesn't seem like the place to go. And if you could say, listen, well, but, when Trump is out of office, people have a perception that lasts. The U.S. has had this reputation for over a century of being the place to go. And it's not just because of Trump. It's because of a lot of the things that have happened in the world. The U.S. has not been competitive, but now you're seeing an acceleration of headlines. This is not me being anti-Trump. Trump grabs the headlines in a way that no other president has. And I see them. People I talk to see them. Trump wants to be talked about, and he's getting talked about by people around the world. Plenty of people that I know like Trump. He's strong. Eastern Europeans. He's strong. He's tough. But they're not the ones who want to move. They're the ones who are happy in their country. They just want a strong, tough guy running the United States. The ones who want to move, I think, are increasingly looking somewhere else, and that's going to damage the brand of the U.S. If you're someone who says, who cares? Well, this isn't for you. If you're someone who wants to be able to travel and do business and make money all over the world, you're already seeing Americans are going to be shut out of more of that. I don't want to allow being born in the United States to stop me from making a lot more money, because I don't agree with keeping intelligent and successful people out of my country. Fortunately, it no longer is my country, but if it still is yours, I think having a second passport and an identity that you can adapt with is going to be important. We do that for folks. If you make over $500,000 a year, or you have more than $1 million in assets, you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. Whether you go there or not, the comments stand, but we'd be happy to help you figure this whole thing out, because I think there's a sea change on the horizon.